All right, good morning, everybody. Mr. Benchersky here today. We're going to be doing our brainstorm session for the climax part of our storyboards. Now, before the holiday break, we completed up to the conflict section. And in order to have completed up to the conflict section, you would have had to have that done in order to watch the movie. So hopefully everybody is there. This is the next section of the storyboard called the climax. And in literature, or in the novel that we're reading, and any novel that you happen to read, the climax is what is considered the most exciting part of the story that leads to the resolution of the problem. So it's basically, you could think of it simply as the most exciting part of the story where a lot of the problems are wrapped up. Now, the main problem, but first of all, before we get started here, I highly recommend that you have your brainstorm ready. There should be a copy of this in your homework package that I sent to you. So if you need to pause now, do so. Go and get that. Come back. You'll need a pen or a pencil. And you can pause this at any time if you find that I'm going too quick, or you just need to go over it again. So for the main problem of the story, if you think back to your problem section, there was actually two main problems in the story. And the first main problem was that the city, I'm going to do this in red here. It's going to be a little technical difficulties today because I'm trying this out for the first time here. So we're going to be doing that the city could not support itself. So basically the city was falling apart. There was no longer could the city support itself. And we saw this in the running low on supplies, in the fact that the generator was breaking down. But the general main problem was that the city could not support itself anymore. The second sort of large problem here was there was no way out, at least that nobody could figure out, except for Dune and Lena, obviously. Now, there were a number of conflicts that happened, and these conflicts happened because of various things that came up along the way of the story, and you would have written about some of these in your conflict section. So the first one is that the mayor is stealing. That's conflict number one. You could look at the guards trying to arrest Lena and Dune as another one. Another huge conflict is the fact that nobody knows how to fix the generator. And I'm going to resize these. Sorry, guys. Again, bear with me here, trying out some new stuff. The generator. And another big problem is that Poppy no capitals there, chewed up the instructions so that there was no way to figure out, it was much more difficult to figure out how to get out. There were other minor conflicts too, the fact that Looper and Lizzie were in on the problem as well, a number of small factors there. But these are the major conflicts that sort of came out of the main problem and made things a lot worse. Now, none of this actually is the climax itself, but it's leading up to at least trying to solve some of these major problems. And when you do your writing, I would definitely suggest start by talking about the main problem, listing off some of the conflicts there. But the bulk of what you're going to be writing about today is in where we call the climax of the story. So if you need to go back to that, pause and go back. But when we go to the climax of the story, we are looking at the most exciting parts of the story. So normally if we were in class, I'd get you to sort of brainstorm and think about that, but we're going to have to just go over it my way today. Now, there's a number of places, a number of things we could write about. But generally speaking, the really, really exciting part of the story is when Lena escapes from the mayor. Now, I really want you to write as much as you can about Lena escaping from the mayor. Go back to the book. You should have taken it home with you. If you need to pick it up, I'd be happy to give it to you here. But think back about that whole scene and how Lena is able to escape from the mayor. Secondly, Lena and Dune meet up. So you can talk a little bit about So talk a little bit about Lena's escape through the city and how she sort of meets up with Dune. Again, don't just list these things off, please. Expand on them. Talk a little bit about how she escapes from the mayor, the conversation with the mayor in her office, how the blackout happens and she needs to rush out and she goes up to the roof. Talk about those things. And go back to the book if you kind of need a refresher because you can't really remember. The next thing that you might want to talk about is getting the boats in the water. I should say getting the boat because they only get one. Talk a little bit about going down to the pipeworks. Again, you're really just sort of giving an account of the exciting part here. You could talk about the river ride, although it's not super interesting, but you could. And then lastly, I would definitely talk about coming out of the cave. So when their boat finally stops and they come out of the cave, I would talk a little bit about I'm going to have to go over here. I apologize. About reading the book that Poppy found. And you could even go one step further and talk a little bit about the New World. There's actually quite a bit to talk about here. So try not to go too long. You don't want to be writing pages and pages, but this is a section where you definitely can say a lot more. So again, don't just list these off. I don't want that. I want you to talk a little bit about them. Now, maybe you talk a little bit more about getting in the boat in the water and you really skim over the river ride. That's okay, as long as you're talking a decent amount about some of those. And the problems that are solved in this area are, well, obviously they know how to get out of Ember. So if we go back up here, we look at the main problem. Well, we know there is a way out of Ember now. Which is one thing that definitely has been solved. But what we need to really look at finally is what's called the anticlimax. And the anticlimax is there anything that hasn't been solved? Are there any things we don't know? Is there anything that the author has left for, for the next book? So what has not been solved? What answers did the author not reveal? So you could think about that if you'd like a little bit, because you need to write a little bit here. One thing you could talk about, and I'll just give you one hint that definitely isn't solved, is will the note they dropped be found? And that's just one of them. But there's a few things that aren't really solved, and most of them have to do with what's going to go on in the city. But we also have to look at what might happen to Dune and Lena. Are there people? Excuse me. Is there anything we can add to that? So the climax section is there is a little bit of writing because you can this is just giving us an account of that most exciting part. So the most exciting part begins when Lena escapes from the mayor. Talk a little bit about that and sort of give us a little bit of a story of how this sort of breaks down until they get into the New World. There's a lot there. So don't be afraid to write a little bit more here than you did in some other sections, like problem were shorter. So this is a section that definitely could be longer. And because you are at home and you have more time and no distractions, or you shouldn't have as many distractions, I guess maybe that's not the right answer because some of you might have more, but try your best to write a lot here. You're going to have a lot of time today to work on this. So today I've given you 3 days, 1 day to work on the rough copy, 1 day to edit it, work on the good copy. If you have someone at home that could edit it, that would be great. If you want to send me a copy through Google Drive and get me to look it over, I can try that. But again, if I get too many, I may not get to everybody's. And then I give you a day to work on the illustration and the flap. Through the course of the next 2 weeks, I want you to have this storyboard done because it needs to be handed in to me the day you come back on the Monday, and it is worth quite a few marks. In 3 days from now, I'm going to set the due date for this assignment. What I want you to do is to take a picture of it, of your storyboard, and the picture of the illustration and of the write-up, and you can attach that to Google Classrooms for me to give you to know that you're done and mark it off for you. So again, start with the main problem, just mention it, mention some of the conflicts, really dig into the sort of exciting part of the story and how it sort of gets towards the end, and then a couple little things, 2 or 3, about what questions aren't answered in the anti-climax section. Otherwise, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know at any time. Otherwise, we will talk to you soon, and I'll see you back when we do our themes and messages brainstorm in about 3-4 days' time. Bye now.